Yo, what up, natties? What is going on? You're here to get natched. That's right. So we have 4 rules of muscle growth. Now, listen, most of you guys, you don't need a new program. You just have to abide by rules, okay? Because the rules for us, they're different than the enhanced, not the same, okay? Now, if you break these rules, you're not going to grow. And that is what we're after. Ugh! Gains! Right? That's what we want, guys. Yeah. Now, beginner gains are pretty easy. You can pretty much do anything. And if that's the stage that you're in, you still want to apply these rules. But if you're trying to break through a plateau, you have to really focus on these, okay? So if you're stuck, you're natty, then you have to really hone in these 4 rules. And that is what we are going to go over here. Now, most of you guys are consistent, but you plateaued, right? You are stuck. And the question is, why? Why are you stuck? Because you are violating fundamental principles. Okay. Now, if you're natural, you really have to learn these fundamentals and you have to dial them in. Now, natural muscle growth, we are constrained, okay? Which means you don't have room for error. Not like the enhanced guys, okay? Now, if you follow these dudes on the drugs, like, Kevin the druggie, you follow Kevin because he's big and he's a bro, you're going to have a hard time with this, okay? Like, you're going to have a hard time with sustained gains over time, unless you are a genetic freak, a genetic anomaly, because I see some of those comments, ooh, well, I increased my sets from 10 to 15, and then 15 to 20, and then 20 to 25, and I grew. Great. All right. Now, that didn't happen to me. If that happened to you, I love it. I'm happy for you, but there's a lot of us where that's not how it goes. Okay. And for me, I did exactly that. I increased the set volume and I didn't see more growth. Okay. I actually had to dial my set volume back, regress it, and focus on other elements. Okay. Now, we have to focus on activating mechanical tension. Okay. Everything comes down to internal mechanical tension. So we have this external load and we manipulate stimulus variables with that external load to then activate mechanical tension internally. So the question is, how do we induce this mechanical tension? How do we activate it? Give our body, our muscles the stimulus, recover, and then adapt so we can grow, because that's what we're after, guys. We want to grow, we want gains, okay? So the question is, how do we do this? How do we activate mechanical tension? So, rule number 1. Progressive load. Okay. If load isn't increasing over time, your body has no reason to grow. So increasing external resistance will increase internal tension. Okay, so at the end of the day, you need to add more weight so the fibers experience greater tension. Now, this is important because It's the magnitude of tension that we are after. Okay, a lot of people will say, oh, we'll just increase sets. Well, yeah, to a certain point. But we're after an increase in tension, the magnitude of it, right? That's where the increase in external load, the progressive load, comes from. So, and of course, you can progress in reps if you need to, right? And once you hit your top end rep count, you then increase the weight. Okay, so I want to show you a basic graph on this. So we have, man, you know what? Why don't we just do this, you guys? Let me get into my tools. All right. We have that. And then we have this. Much cleaner. Much cleaner. I'm over here messing around with drawing these lines. So we have strength and we have time. So over time, you increase in strength, which is progressive load. And it's not linear. It's going to be something like this, right? But over time, you increase the load. And we do this in bodybuilding repetition ranges, which can be anywhere from from 6 to 30 reps. And the sweet spot, 8 to 12 reps. Now, hypertrophy, muscle growth, can happen 6 to 30. So it can be 6, it can be 7, it can be 13, it can be 15, it can be 20, right? It's just the higher up you go, you have to get closer to failure, if not muscular failure. Okay. But we want to get stronger over time in bodybuilding repetition ranges. And I had someone recently make some comments. I think it's Travis. Shout out to Travis. And he mentioned, well, you can't keep just going up, you're going to get hurt. And there's merit to that for sure. So you increase in strength in good form. Okay. You can't get sloppy, which I'm going to discuss here on the next slide. But naturally, because we're focusing on progressive load, like that is part of the program. And naturally, it occurs, it's just not purposeful. I'm telling you to make it purposeful. Because a lot of the time, it does happen naturally. So you just keep going up in reps. So you keep the same load, right? Let's say you have 100 times 10 reps, and you keep the same load, and then next session you hit 12, and then maybe the next session you hit 15, and maybe the next session you hit 18. So, I mean, where is the stopping point with this, you guys, right? At what point do you go, you know what? I'm going to increase the weight. At some point, depending on what you're doing, what movement is, what body part, but at some point, you're just not going to keep going up in reps, right? It's going to get to a point where it will fall out of that anaerobic stimulus, that growth stimulus that we're wanting, that we need to induce. So when you hit a certain point, I mean, you might hit 18 and go, you know what? Let's go 110 and see where the cards fall. Okay, so, and a lot of people will do this, but it's not purposeful. So the whole point of progressive load being a rule is that you make it purposeful within your program design, not just like, oh, I'll just increase whenever, you know. So if you do it more with a more purposeful manner, you will progress faster, basically, versus just kind of lollygagging and be like, oh, it's been a month. I think I can go up and wait. When you could have gone up and wait 2 weeks ago. Just faster. Right? But the caveat is you stay in good form. Okay? But yeah, so you progress in reps. I'm cool with that. Right? It's progression. But then you get to a certain point, right? Depending on where you are. And you go up in load, and then you just keep repeating that process. But like I said, no slops. Okay. No sloppy reps. So, no CrossFitting. No CrossFitting reps. No IF BB in reps, because those guys, it's the same. It's the same shit, guys. The IFBB competitors, the bodybuilders, and the CrossFitters, like, there's no difference. You know, they just throw a weight around, they sling it around. So it's fun to watch sometimes, because it's like, what is going on here? Like, if you watch Branch Warren or Ronnie Coleman, it's just, my joints hurt watching them. It's crazy. But this is everyone's issue with progressive load. I've said it 1,000 times. Typically, it is the guys that are using drugs that they shit on progressive load, because, again, they don't need to get stronger. We do. Natties have to get stronger. They don't. So they shit on progressive load, and they say, oh, well, you don't need to get stronger, because that's dangerous, which it can be, you know, especially if you're using gear, right? They get so strong so quickly, the tendons don't catch up. It's Snap City, you guys, right? So it's not quite like that with naturals. I'm not saying you can't get hurt, but it's a stark difference between someone who's enhanced, that's progressively loading, and someone who's natural, that's progressively loading, right? Like, it's just not the same. Like, we're not going to get as strong as quickly. And they don't need to grow. So, and you can argue, maybe they shouldn't. You know, I think they would see better results. But you could make an argument. You could make an argument and say, well, you know, we might enter Snap City like Ronnie Coleman or like Dorian Yates, you know, because they're so focused on progressively loading. But with the gear, they got really big. You know, even the guys in Dog Crap and Dante's system, they're all on gear, but their focus is progressive load. They got really, really massive. So progressive load, I mean, it works for both parties. It's just that the guys on gear don't need it to get bigger. Us naturals, we need it. That's the difference. Now, if the guys on gear focus on it, they get wickedly bigger, right? It's crazy, right? But they don't need to, and like I said, you could argue against it on gear. But as a natty, we need to get stronger. Caveat being, don't slop your reps, okay? But that's the reason why so many people are shitting on progressive load, and typically it's the guys that are using and abusing that are talking the smack on this. Sometimes you'll see some natural guys saying you don't have to get stronger, but typically they're genetically you know, they're anomalies. They're genetic freaks. So I've seen that before, but it's like, bro, like, you don't have to get stronger. Like you look at weight and you grow. Okay. So it's important. Progressive load for us, important. But we want clean progressive load. We don't want slop. Okay. No slops. Not what we're trying to do, you guys. All right, so rule number 2. High intensity effort. You need to train hard. Your reps and your sets need to be hard enough, close to muscular failure, or to muscular failure. That's how it has to be, you guys. Again, we have to do that. They don't. Okay. Now, this does 2 things. One, and I'm writing a little bit slower, guys, because I'm trying to have a little bit better handwriting here. So I know it's taking a little bit more time, but I'm trying not to slop through this like some guys slop through their progressive loading, their weights, like, you know, the IFBB pros and the CrossFitters. So I'm going to take my time. So this does 2 things. One, recruits low threshold and high threshold motor units. And then the second thing this does, this creates high fiber tension. Now, fibers must be turned on, okay? In order for the fibers to experience high tension, they're getting pulled and tugged, they have to be recruited. Okay, so we have to recruit the fibers. So we recruit low threshold motor units and high threshold motor units. And a motor unit is basically a neuron, right? And it's tied to these fibers. And a motor unit is in charge of a whole bunch of fibers. So one motor unit can have thousands and thousands of muscle fibers. So we have to recruit all available motor units, low threshold and high threshold. Okay, and usually low threshold will be attached to slow twitch fibers, and high threshold motor units will have fast twitch muscle fibers, which are more those are the fibers that are more responsible for force output, high force output, strength, and size. And the slow twitch fibers, which are usually tied to the low threshold motor units, are more lower force, high repeated contractions. So aerobic work, basically. Okay. So we need to recruit all available motor units in the muscle, low threshold, high threshold. And then once we recruit them, we want them to experience high tension, high fiber tension. Okay. So if a rep is very hard, a rep. Okay. Now, this could be rep 1, or this could be in the middle, or this could be at the end where it's failure. Okay. Because it's based off Henneman's size principle. Okay? It's based off demand. So you can throw weight, or I love using the analogy of the baseball pitch, very fast, right? So you can throw weight like the IFBB pros, the CrossFitters. It's fast, high velocity. If a repetition is very hard, it's very difficult, you will recruit as many available motor units as possible based on the demand of that rep. Okay, based on the demand it needs, the force requirements it needs for that repetition. Okay? So we need that. That's number one. That's number one. Now that could be at the beginning, the middle, or the end, or all the way through. Okay? As far as the recruitment is concerned. Once we recruit as many fibers as possible, and those reps at the end, when they slow down, those fibers will experience the highest forces possible, which means high internal mechanical tension. Okay, so we know that to be true due to the inverse relationship between force and velocity. Okay, it's just muscle physiology. So forces at the fiber level, forces are very high when velocity is slower, and vice versa. So there's this inverse relationship. Okay, and when velocity is very high, forces are lower at the fiber level. Okay, so the fiber tension isn't going to be as high if it's high velocity. If it's lower velocity, involuntary, like this is not purposefully going slower, but towards the end of a set where reps slow down, those last few reps, when you are literally forced to slow down, it is those reps that create high tension on those fibers. Okay? So we need two things. Okay? We need high intensity effort for two reasons. We need to recruit all available motor units in that muscle to perform that task. And then we have to get towards the end, right? So close to failure, if not to failure, where the repetitions slow down, and that will create high fiber tension with all of those fibers that are recruited. Okay, so we have to recruit them, then we have to create the high fiber tension. Okay, now if you take a set close to failure or to failure, both of these things are going to happen. Okay, so if you take a set near failure or to failure, those two things are going to happen. All right, so you can start out going fast, or you can start out going slower. As far as rep one, as long as you get close to the end where the reps slow down, not on purpose, but you weaken, right? The strength depletes and the strength is dropping and you have to slow down. You're being forced to slow down. You don't stop, you keep going, you do more of those reps. Those are the reps that are really important, and those are the reps that are going to recruit everything for sure at that point. And they're also going to create high tensions on the fiber. Okay, so rule number two, high intensity effort. So the last reps before failure or to failure, okay, they have the highest tension, highest recruitment, highest stimulus. All right, so let me get into my handy dandy notebook. What was that? Is that Blue's Clues? So I'm going to draw you a cute little graph here again. Connect that. Okay. And let's kind of move you guys. Let's decrease you. Let's move you there. Let's move you here. So let's actually drop you down some. So what we have here is intensity, okay? And then what we have here are reps, okay? Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll put a 9. Now, right here on the 9th one will be failure, okay? So you can't do it. Cannot do it. Then you have 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now the reps that matter the most, you guys, again, are going to be in this realm. Okay, if you fail at rep 9, your most important reps are going to be from rep 6 to rep 9. Those are the growth reps. I call them stimulatory reps. Is what I named them in my paper. Those are the most important repetitions. Now, this doesn't mean, okay, that you have to reach muscular failure. In fact, I think it's best if you don't. All right, I think it's best if you don't. So really, if you get in this realm right here, it would be better. So when I go to failure, my nervous system gets wrecked, you guys. Now it happens now. I'm 41. It didn't happen to me when I was younger, okay? But after about age 35, my nervous system, it gets trashed. Now, after I sleep, I get food and I sleep the next day, I'm fine. But in this session that I'm doing, it's not a good time. I don't want to even continue to work out when I feel that. So I feel like flu-like symptoms, okay? This is like similar to me getting a tattoo. So I'm blasted like everywhere. I have a black arm, half a black arm. I've had black work done 3 times over. This is all white, kind of red, but I've had this blacked out, and then I had white over it, like the stars, the eagle, the drug-free banner. I've probably have put white in there maybe 3, maybe 4 times. So anyway, as you can see, I have a lot of tattoos, and the majority of my body is covered. Well, I would say maybe, I don't know, 80%, 75%. Back, chest, stomach, legs. Before 30 years old, I could sit for hours. I could sit in a chair and I could sit there for 8, 10, 12 hours. No problem. Didn't affect me. After I hit 30, it started affecting me systemically. And I started getting what's called tattoo flu. Okay. And same thing. I would get some food, I'd sleep, next day, fine. But my body was hit systemically so hard that I would get these flu-like symptoms. The same thing happens to me when I hit failure, especially if I hit failure on like a compound movement. You know, I'm more prone going to failure on like a curl or an extension or, you know, side raise, things like that. But compound movements, I'm very careful because it can wreck me for the session. So I noticed this as I've gotten older, and I know a lot of the hit guys out there. I've seen them. I've seen them talk about it, and I used to train. I train here at Las Vegas, you guys. Okay, I used to train at City Athletic Club. There was over 100 trainers there at one point in time. It was a big, big, big gym, and there for a minute, you know, me and Marcus Reinhardt were friends, and we would train together sometimes, and we would talk, and sometimes we'd go to shows, and yeah, we'd hang out, you know. And so I was running in hit circles online, you guys, on the internet. So I know how these guys think. I know the dogma behind it. And a lot of these guys will say, if you don't go to failure, you're a pussy. You're a pussy. And there's another guy, I'm not even going to name him. It's not even worth naming. That he started coming in the hit scene like, I don't know, 5 years ago. And he's like aggressive, like all these guys are, you know. Guys, you're not a pussy if you don't go to failure. Okay, this is why I talk shit in my workout videos. You know, I'll do a set that didn't go to failure, got close to failure. I'm like, oh, was that good enough? Was that not hard? That was a pussy set, wasn't it, guys? That set was just, I was just fluffing around. Not a hard set at all, right? Because I didn't go to failure. That's not true. Okay, so guys, you don't have to go to failure. And if you are experiencing any kind of flu-like symptoms because your nervous system is getting hit hard and it just sucks to work out, then hey, I advise that you stay in this realm. I'm not saying don't train hard. I'm saying just don't go to failure, okay? That's all. All right? So no, you're not a pussy if you don't train to failure. You can train really hard, and the training itself can be very, very hard, proximal to failure, okay? So, and guys, if you're older, you know, I'm not even convinced that failure is the thing to do on every set anyway, even if you're not getting the flu, all right? Because, again, which we're going to get into here in a second, but I don't believe in a one set to failure or one set approach. If you're only doing one set, okay, you better go to failure. If that's all you're doing, one set, and then you're leaving the gym, you better make it count. But I don't believe in doing one set. I believe in doing a little bit more. So we back off a little bit. Okay, that doesn't mean that's easy. That doesn't mean that, you know, you got a slit between your legs, you guys, okay? So any of you HIIT guys out there that think this, like, I get it. I get it. I was like that. I understand. It's very dogmatic inside of HIIT. I know exactly how you're thinking and where you guys are at, but it's like, come on, get with the program. So, and again, I don't mind failure every now and then. Use it sparingly. Okay? Use it sparingly. Bottom line, you have to make it hard. So intensity of effort matters. So if it's easy and if you're natural and your sets are easy, you're not going to grow. Okay? You have to reach these growth reps. Okay? You have to reach these growth reps right here. Very, very important. If your failure point in this example is 9. Okay, so towards the end, where reps begin to slow down. Okay, that's where the stimulus is. Now, rule number 3, which ties into rule number 2. Controlled volume. More volume is not better. Better volume is better. Okay. Now, if you have rule number 1 and rule number 2 in check, you can only do so much volume. Okay, so if your strength is going up and you're focused on progressive load, right, and your intensity is high, you can only, like, in the session, per set. So this is session to session over time, and this is within the session itself. You can only do so much volume. So you have to give and take. What is a priority? You can't do all of these. High volume, progressive load, high intensity to failure. You can't do it like that. So you have to choose which stimulus variables that you want to prioritize. So as a natty, you need to prioritize progressive load, intensity of effort. So now we have controlled volume. So more volume after these two things are in check and dialed in. More volume is not better. Better volume is better. Okay? So too much volume can stall strength. Okay? And again, this is session to session. You'll notice this curve of, well, you might not even like, so you're going up and then you hit too much volume and then you start doing one of these, right? You're not going anywhere with strength. You might even regress. It's possible if you're doing too much. So we don't want a stall in strength because we need to get stronger. Over time, we have to get stronger, okay? And you look at that patterns, right? It's not like the next session, right? Oh, I didn't make a PR, so I must be doing too much volume. Maybe not. Let's look at data over the long haul, okay? So too much volume will stall strength, and then too much volume will reduce intensity within this session. All right. So we don't want that because we want to keep our sets intense. We want to keep our reps in our sets intense. Again, rule number 2. Right? And the more that you do, you can either have your sessions or your sets be high intensive or higher volume. You can't have both. So more, it's like this continuum. It's not like black and white because it is this inverse relationship. Right? When one goes up, the other comes down, but they cross over into this continuum. So the more sets you do, it's going to slowly reduce your intensity. Not only that, but if you know psychologically, so that's physiologically that happens. Psychologically, if you know that you have 20 sets to do, you're not putting out. You're not putting out. Chances are you're doing a lot of back off sets. And in fact, if you have 20 sets to do, you know, you're probably stopping at rep 6 right here. For sure. Like if you got 20 sets, you're not pushing it. So psychologically, that's what happens. Okay. So so we don't want this, okay? This is bad news, guys. So here we are. I'm going to draw you another cute little graph. Looks like I have 20% remaining on my battery here. You guys learning anything? You learning something here? Or is this boring as motherfuck? Here we go. Okay, so where are we at? So we have over here, we have, hang on. Let me move this. So right here, we have growth, right? And this goes up. This goes this way. And we have 1, 5. Let me redo that. We have 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And this represents sets. Let's just do this. So, as I keep saying, as I keep, lots of my videos, I talk about more optimal set volume for naturals, okay? So the curve looks something like this. All right. So a more optimal, it's going to be right here, between 5 to 10 per muscle group per session. So over here, it's just insufficient volume, usually. And then over here, it's excessive volume. And this is where you get into junk volume territory, where basically you have a point of diminished returns, and doing more, it doesn't net you any growth. So at least not substantial gains like here in this realm, 5 to 10 per muscle group per session. I don't use weekly. I think that's just a really strange, whole thing that everyone came up with. I know that's what it is in the research, but they go off of how many sets per week contribute. In the hypertrophy research, they look at weekly set volume. And I don't think it should be looked at weekly. It needs to be, what is the set volume for that session? Because we have these other stimulus variables, right? And when we implement the stimulus, so how much of the stimulus in that session to induce growth? Okay, so I look at it on a session-to-session basis, not weekly. So 5 to 10 sets, and I know people will say, oh, well, all the research shows that higher set volume, like, over here, shows greater hypertrophy. Okay, have you read the research? Like, it's bad. It sucks. Yes, I mean, all these studies, there's lots of limitations with all kinds of research, but I am not convinced that a higher volume like that elicits optimal or maximal, should we say, hypertrophy. I'm not. I think the research is sketchy for a lot of reasons. And in my last paper, I actually went through two studies, two hypertrophy studies, and I dissected them and the issues. There were examples of here's the problems, you guys, with the hypertrophy research. Like it's right here. And I dissected two studies. So if you guys want to read my paper, then I'll link it in this description. That's what I'll do. I'll put it in there so you guys can go read that. But it's a paper based off of natural muscle growth, hypertrophy, natural hypertrophy for natties. Okay. So yeah, I know that people are going to fight back and say that, and they'll say, "Where's your research?" Well, I wrote a paper on it, guys. Okay. I haven't conducted randomized controlled trials, but I did write a paper on this exact subject, and I have like 100 references. Like it was beastly. Okay, it took me a while to gather all of the research, go through everything, write it, submit it. It got rejected. So people don't even, if you've ever like submitted a paper to a journal, it is no joke. It is no joke. And that's my third one. And it got rejected 5 times. 5 times. Okay. And meaning, so whenever you send it in, you have peers in the field that are subject matter experts that go over your paper, go over the arguments. It all has to be concise. It all has to flow. And usually they either reject it or they accept it with revisions or they accept. That's usually how it goes. My paper got rejected 5 times. And it was rough. But I kept fixing things and I kept adjusting, and now the paper, it got published. It's very sound, and it is actually a position paper. It goes against high volume. Okay, so I'll link it. Check it out. Sorry, I digress. So volume, this volume situation. You have to remember that volume is a dose of stimulus. It is not the stimulus itself. Okay, the stimulus is rule number 1, rule number 2. So increase in load and intensity of effort. That is the stimulus. Volume is not the stimulus. It is only a dose of the stimulus. Okay. Do enough to grow, right? So here we are. Do enough to grow. But don't overdo it where you stall. All right? All right, rule number 3. That's what that is. Okay, rule number 4. Intelligent frequency. Now, frequency is about tension exposure. Okay, how often you hit a specific muscle group. So we're talking about specific frequency, not general. Okay. General frequency is just how often you train, right? Like you hit the gym 5 days a week, but then you have a certain split, right? For example. So a specific frequency would be how often do you hit your chest? How often is that stimulus provided to the chest? Is it every second day, third, fourth, fifth, seventh day? Okay, that is specific frequency. Okay. Now, how often you hit a specific muscle group will be determined by two things. How muscular you are and how strong you are. But when you're natty, these are symbiotic. They go hand in hand. Okay. I like to go off of muscularity personally. So I look at frequency based off of your current muscularity and strength. Okay. So the weaker and smaller you are, the higher the specific frequency. The stronger and larger you are, the lower the specific frequency. So there's this inverse relationship between strength and muscularity and frequency. Okay? So, and I'll probably make, well, I will make a video just on frequency. I haven't done that. I've made videos on progressive load, intensity, volume, but never on this. Strength and muscularity. This goes here, so basically high, low, high. What's going on here? Oh, man. High. Okay, and then we have specific frequency down here. Okay. Now, it looks, this curve is like this. That's a pretty good curve for hand drawing that. That's okay. So let's see. Can we put this in here? Oh, yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can, but we're going to do this. We're going to do one of these numbers. Let's see. Oh, yep, you like that? Hell yeah, baby. We're working this shit. We're getting a little bit more skilled over here. That's what we're doing. I'll put it like right there. I'll put this one like right there. So, the more muscular you are, okay, strength, muscularity, lower the frequency. Okay, you need more recovery. That's what this is about. When you are stronger and you're more muscular, you need more recovery. Now, some people will say, oh, we back volume down. That's very classic in HIIT. Well, especially with Mike Mentzer. He always says as you get bigger and stronger, you reduce volume and frequency. So I don't believe that to be true with volume. I think volume can actually pussy. There's pussy right there. Can actually stay right here, 5 to 10 per muscle group per session. And there's some wiggle. That's not like a hard rule, you guys. You might need 12. You could need 15, but I kind of question if you're doing rule number 1 or number 2 effectively, right? Because that's another thing, guys. I see guys, oh, well, I started growing from 15 to 20, and then 20 to 25, I grew more. I'm like, well, I got to see these sets. Yeah, I got to see a video clip of how you're training for 20 sets. I'm really curious here, you know? So when I see those comments, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's just a comment. Like, what does that even mean? Like, right? Like, let's see your strength numbers. Let's see how you're training. Like, I want to see the whole picture, not just a comment. Well, I grew going from 10 to 15, and then I grew more going from 15 to 25. Doesn't mean anything, okay? So, volume, I recommend just stays right there, just stays put. It just stays put. 5 to 10 per muscle group per session. So, yes, Mike Mentzer did mention this inverse relationship with volume and frequency. I don't believe it's true with volume. I believe it's true with frequency. But it's not the same. It's not the same, guys. So before we go after me, Punk Johnny 796, in the comments telling me that I'm plagiarizing and I'm ripping shit off, like, sit down, okay? Sit your ass down and calm your tits, all right? They're probably flabby tits. Calm them, okay? And in fact, volume might even increase a little bit in this spot right here, depending on your split. Because you can manipulate these splits in different ways. But the stronger and more muscular you become, you need less specific frequency on that muscle group for recovery because you're just stronger and you accrue more stress. So you need more recovery time, recovery and adaptation time. Okay, those are two different things. Recovery and adaptation time, so you grow. But I don't believe volume needs to be decreased. If anything, possibly increased a little bit. All right? Now, for something like that, this can be right here. This can be every 5th to 7th day. Okay? When you're very strong and very muscular. All right. Now, the flip side of that, when you have low strength and muscularity, your specific frequency can be higher. That is every 2nd or 3rd day. Okay. But anyway, rule of thumb, you guys. This probably made this section is probably a little confusing because I was kind of bouncing around a little bit. But rule of thumb, whenever you're a beginner and you have zero to 10 pounds to grow, this is where you want to be. High specific frequency on the muscle groups. You want to hit them 2 to 3 times a week. Okay. If you're between 10 to 20 pounds, let me redo that. 10 to 20 pounds, this is where you want to be. Okay, twice a week. You want to hit muscle groups twice a week. And if you are 20 plus pounds, then you got to be here. And you want to hit, like I said, every 5th or 7th day. Okay, but typically it's once a week. Okay, now there's lots of ways for all of this, whether you're over here in the beginner, intermediate, or advanced, because that's what that is. There's different ways to program these splits. But the rule of thumb is this is the inverse relationship. At the beginning, you're not as strong, you're weaker. So there's not a lot of stress that you can really hit the muscles with. You don't know how to move the weight. You can't really perform high intensive contractions. You don't, you go in, learn the movements. You have to improve skill acquisition. Learn what soreness feels like. Like, there's so much you have to learn. And your recovery is so quick. You acclimate so fast in the beginning stages. You're just not handling heavy loads. You're not producing a lot of stress to the muscle. Your muscles need higher specific frequency in the beginning for a lot of reasons. Then as you grow, you taper it down. And as you get to the 20 plus mark, now you have to taper it back even more. Okay. Now again, this is only applicable getting stronger, getting more muscular. This is applicable to frequency, specific frequency. This is not applicable to volume. So I don't agree with what Mentzer said. You have to reduce volume and frequency as you get bigger and stronger. Frequency. But even his frequency recommendations, guys, towards the end in his heavy duty 2, crazy. Crazy. He's taken 9, 12 days off of a muscle group. That's too much. I think 7 days is the maximum. Just my opinion. I don't think anything beyond that is going to be beneficial. So, yeah, those ideas were a little bit crazy. So, yeah, we got rule number 4 still. So, like I said, for beginners and intermediates, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. Okay, just train the muscle group more often. And as you grow and you get these gains, you need to taper it back, right? You become more advanced. And also, I like to look at what's in the advanced stages. Okay. I like to look at what is hindering progression. Is it localized or systemic recovery? And this is a reason why, going back to Mentzer, he would push those days, the specific frequency days, out. I believe sometimes it'd be like 20 days, 21 days. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So, but I believe, I think it might have been heavy duty 2, that it might have been like a 3-week period up to a certain point. And the whole reason was because of systemic recovery. Okay. Wasn't localized. So localized is localized to the tissue, right? And then you have your whole body. It's like universal, very systemic. And you have to let all the other things in the human system basically recover and repair. So I look at this too. I don't go beyond 7 days though. We just this will help determine how we approach your training splits. So it becomes more nuanced the stronger and bigger you get. We don't push specific frequency past the 7-day mark, but depending on what the issue is as far as progression, is it an issue with localized recovery or is it an issue with systemic recovery? This will determine what we do with training splits, how we navigate that. Because that can change based off of what is hindering progression. So, application, if you guys are still here, I commend you. You're doing pretty good. Sit through all that bullshit. I'm not feeling it today. I woke up with a really, really sore throat, but here we are, right? So, progression drives, I'm sorry. I don't know why I had that all mixed up. So tension drives progression because we're looking for this externally and then internally, okay? Intensity ensures recruitment. But so does progression, guys, like progressive load. Because as you get stronger, more weight on the bar, there's more demand, right? There's more demand. So going back to Henneman's size principle, there's more forces at play where it's like, hey, yo, we got to recruit. Let's go. Bring him back up, right? Is the dose stimulus, and then frequency distributes the dose. Okay. So if you follow these 4 rules that I laid out, you will grow. Okay, and this is if you're a natural, all right? If you break them, you're going to plateau. It's simple as that. You don't need a better program, you need better execution. Okay? So, listen, guys, top link in that description. Tap it. It takes you to my Natty Aesthetics program, my community. If you need help with any of this, join the community, get in the program. Or, if you just want to be part of the community, the Natty drug-free community, where, come on, guys, we got those big balls. This is how we do it. We're not shutting off our nuts. We're doing this naturally. We're doing it the right way. We're doing it the clean way, the healthy way. So tap that link, you guys. Okay, if you need help, you got help. You can piece all my stuff together. But if you want hands-on help, let's get in the community. Show up at the calls, get coaching. Just come hang out. All right? Come hang out and be part of the community. See you there.